everyone, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Molly, and today I'm going to be reacting to and reviewing Season 2, Episode 3 of The Expanse. Alright, so, last episode we left off with a really shocking ending, shocking and really exciting in my opinion, with Miller killing the scientist who I am now aware is named Dresden. So this is obviously going to be a source of contention. Dresden was making his argument for why they really should allow him to continue his research on the project on the protomolecule. And, there was some kind of validity to some of what he was saying about the idea that this was some sort of alien thing that had been sent there that could be attacking humanity, and that they needed to kind of understand what it was and maybe try to use it for their own gain or in some way that they can protect themselves. Yes, but at the same time that doesn't, in my opinion at least, as I made clear before and I continue to feel, does not justify in any aspect what they had done to people unwillingly on Phoebe and Eros, all of the people that they horrifically killed, as well as all of the things that they did to basically try and instigate a war. So killing all the people on the Dunnage or the Canterbury, everything that they had done was not even remotely justified, in my opinion, by that. It seemed that it was maybe kind of convincing Fred or getting into his head that maybe he was making some sort of sense. At the very least, I don't know, it seemed as though his speech was having an impact on Fred and Holden, and so Miller shoots him, and that's kind of the end of that. And that's where we're picking back up, and we're gonna see the kind of aftermath of that, because of course it also does leave them in a circumstance where, he was the person that had all the information. Whether he was going to tell them or not, I don't know. It seemed like he was suggesting he would, as long as he was allowed to continue his research, but I don't know. So we'll see what happens there. So then just a couple of quick things before I get into this episode. First, I just want to, again, as I do, send a quick thank you to everybody who's come out to support me on Patreon. It really is a huge help for everybody who's willing to come out and donate some money, whether you're just donating a couple of dollars a month just to kind of be supportive of the channel. Really, even a couple dollars goes a huge long way and makes it easier for me to make these videos and put them out faster than I otherwise would be able to, because I have other work, I have to work for a living, but also for everybody that has come out to get the extended reactions to The Expanse, or get exclusive access to Penny Dreadful, or early reactions, whatever tier you're coming on. It really is a huge help, and I enjoy the community that we are forming over there on Patreon. It's a lot of fun, so I want to thank you guys so much, and anybody that's interested in becoming a patron, I'll put a link in the description below. You can go check out the various tiers and what's available and see if you're interested or not. But if you're not, it's not a huge deal, but if you are interested, please do check it out. Okay, so I was just going to say that, and then also I was just going to briefly mention, in case you hear any kitten cries in the background, I know I had said in one of my videos from just a few days ago that you might hear some kitten cries. You may continue to hear kitten cries. I know that in one of my earlier Sabrina videos, you guys would have gotten to see one of my kittens, a little black kitten named Ella, and she is a kitten who was living outside and I brought in. Basically what happened is her mother is a stray cat that lives outside near and back of my house. Her father also is another stray cat that's out there, and they had her, and then what happened was when she was about 4 or 5 months old, the mother had another litter of kittens, 4 little kittens, and so basically Ella was out on her own at that point. The mom wasn't scaring her away completely, but she wasn't really paying much attention to her, and she wanted her to keep somewhat of a distance from the new kitten, so that's why Ella came in, because she was all sad and lonely. But I've been kind of just taking care of the whole family, and there's been some really cold, brutal weather lately, and the kittens over the months have gotten used to me. They're very friendly, so I kind of got them all to come inside, and I'm just keeping them in here for the time being because it's really cold and I don't want them to be outside in the bad weather. But they're very rambunctious, and they run around a lot, and they're very chatty and talkative, so just a heads up if you hear what sounds like little whiny or meowing noises. There's crazy kittens running around in this house right now. So just that's what that is if you hear noise in the background. And that could be continuing in the future with other videos too. Just wanted to let everybody know what that was so you aren't freaked out by the noises. Alright, so all that being said, I'm excited to keep going, so let's jump right into episode 3, see what's going to happen to Miller. I'm worried about him. and everybody else going forward, alright? Let's go.
Guard.
Miller too?
Leave him here.
Hey! I don't want him anywhere near the prisoners!
He won't be. And get these people to hold him.
Sure thing, boss man.
Jeez, Holden.
Without any further harm. We clear?
Holden, since when are you, like...
Shouldn't even be on this station!
Hey, something you need to get off your chest there?
Camera!
Stop here.
So I'm dipped in shit right now. Oh no. This shit is permanent. Captain doesn't want you around anymore. We don't want you around either. We've been around. But the captain, well, he's as close to righteous as it gets out here. So when you says you're out, that's just how it is. Because the way I figure, he's probably right. Sure as hell has a better chance of being right than I do.
Huh. It's just really interesting the way that he thinks about, you know, other people's perspectives. And how Miller had said before that...
You keep picking fights with the wrong people.
Yeah. How Miller had said that he was following Naomi as kind of like his guiding star, a moral compass, so to speak. So it's like Amos has this sense that the way that he processes things, that he thinks about things, this kind of ultra-rational perspective is like maybe not the most ideal way to be. So he'll say something like he thinks Holden's probably right, even if he would have done what Miller did. I just think it's really interesting.
Not too shabby, right?
Oh my god. Oh my god, Miller.
Can you please turn this shit off?
Oh my god, this kid. Look at those 10,000 pictures of naked women all over your walls.
Felters, you're jamming
You're never gonna
to?
get an actual
Dead.
naked woman in there.
Dying. Worse.
That's why it's an anthem, Papa. A call to war.
Oh yeah? Going to war now.
Everyone's going to war. Earth, Mars, Belt.
Never even know what you were fighting for.
You killed that guy. What you fighting for?
Cut off one head. Plenty more where he came from.
So we cut off all the heads. Rule the whole system.
System rules you, kid. Always has.
Even more reason I choose to fight.
You don't choose anything. You're born into it, man. One side or the other. You play it out.
Well, that's interesting. You've gotten to that point, Miller. The one side or the other.
You know, in those inners, you figure out what's on Eros. They killed every last one of us to get it.
Us?
Is that what he was thinking? When he was looking at Fred and Holden talking to Dresden?
Spelters.
Beltaloda.
She would.
Hyperstimulation. Part of his temporal lobe has been effectively erased.
Which part?
The part that governs empathy.
You can do that with a magnet?
I've only read about the procedure. It's not that simple, but it's not complicated either.
Oh my
it's not
God.
invasive.
So someone waves a magnet at the right side of my head and suddenly I can watch 100,000 people die in agony and not give a shit.
I've checked the other prisoners. It's been done to all of them.
Security guards on that station were armed with riot bullets, probably to keep them from murdering each other.
Well, he's not a homicidal maniac. He just no longer has the capacity to consider any life other than his own meaningful.
Is his condition reversible?
I'm afraid not.
How do you reach a guy
Amos
like that?
thinking about himself.
Can you tell me how Private Travis ended up with a fractured orbital?
Sir, did you ask Private Travis, sir?
Don't
Amos
give me
is
that
thinking about
gun.
himself there.
Are we gonna just keep eating shit from Earth, or are we gonna take them out and end this?
What does that have to do with one of my
We
sergeants?
found a solution. No. In that hotel room, there was madness. And it stank of sick death.
Amos feels like
See, you
he
and
knows
I
how to
were
talk
both
to
from the
this
slums,
person.
so I know you know the smell that I'm talking about. And there was a puddle, blue-brown slime in the center of the bed, and it smeared down across the floor. She must have dragged herself like a dying animal. Blue-brown, metabolic excretions. And she was sitting on the shower floor. Blue barnacles jutting out of her mouth, out of her body, snaking out of her hair, growing up against the walls.
I don't like seeing that again.
And there she was, naked as Eve. Dead. Beautiful. Beautifully dead. Not dead. Becoming.
Oh. Full on total belter haircut, huh? It looks good.
Can I help you?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. We try to ask them stuff, and they're not gonna just talk about raping little kids, but if you show them pictures of kids, then they'll go on and on and on.
So that's what you're...
I had a private chat with Cortazar, and Eros
Makes
is
sense
his
what he was doing.
pedophilia. You were talking about stopping it, taking it away. That's why he wouldn't help you.
That's Phoebe Station.
Okay, so
I was
Amos
there.
kind of
That's the Martian
sort
science
of
team.
feels like he understands this guy.
What happened to them?
Does he think it's because he's
Clearly,
sort of
we
like
used
him,
them
but
to
also
observe
because
the
he's sort of
progress
like
of the
bad
infection
people
in the
that he
human
knows
host?
or has known?
You
Amos
infected
has
them and
known?
watched them die.
We watched it work. The protomolecule is the first evidence of a tree of life apart from our own. It didn't come with an instruction manual. We nurtured it the best way we knew how.
But Phoebe wasn't enough for you.
We didn't control the station, so we incinerated the Martians, erased the data cores, and left. Dr. Dresden used 2 ships, one for our team, one for the sample. There were contamination concerns.
He was right to be concerned. It got out on the Anubis. I saw the results.
You did. What did it do?
Killed everyone aboard.
Obviously. But then what?
Yeah, he doesn't care
And be
about that.
specific, please.
He wants to...
Tell him about the reactor.
The power was shut down when we arrived. The protomolecule was frozen around the reactor core.
I was starving. Did you turn the power back on?
Mm-hmm. Started moving, reaching out to me.
Is there anything more that I could see?
We nuked the ship and everything on it.
But still going strong on Eros.
Holden, you are totally failing at this
Me
because
either,
you
too.
can't keep the contempt out of your voice.
It
Thank
learns you.
God Amos is there.
It does something different every time. The more biomass you feed it, the faster it learns, the more it changes.
So you fed it, Eros. A whole station, 100,000 people.
100,000 opportunities. We can only learn.
This means you know where you want to go?
Eros,
What?
something real bad is going on down there.
Yeah, we know.
And you know we have to destroy it.
I think you're right.
I know that you know that Dresden was gonna get away with it. And I didn't kill him because he was crazy. I killed him because he was making sense.
Exactly. Exactly.
Any
Yeah.
idea how we can take out a whole
Fred gets it.
asteroid?
Yeah. With that,
Wait. That's why you were talking to the Mormons. Okay. Alright, well, that was episode 3. So I kind of feel like for a, I don't know how to put this, I guess slower episode than what we had last episode, because episode 2 was obviously kind of one of the most fast-paced episodes of the series. It was, like I said, probably my favorite episode so far, and that it had so much involved in it, so much that happened. So compared to that, this was definitely, I guess, a slower episode in terms of things happening events-wise. It was kind of the aftermath, the downturn after everything that happened in episode 2, where everyone's just kind of processing everything. It still did seem like there was a lot going on, that a lot of significant things developed, and we also got a lot of really good, in my opinion, really good character development in this episode. It seemed to me that that was more the focus of this episode, was developing the characters and their relationships with each other, and their kind of internal issues, struggles that they're facing. So, I mean, in some respects you could see everyone kind of here in this episode kind of dealing with their own internal struggles and trying to come to terms with their own personal conflicts and uncertainties. I'd say that it was the biggest developmentally, character-wise, for Miller and Amos this episode, but there was stuff for everybody. I mean, I really liked, and it kind of like got to me the little bit with Alex even at the end there. Like, I really wasn't certain. You could tell throughout the episode that he was feeling much less relaxed and comfortable in the situation than, say, Naomi, who said she was feeling happy for the first time. Alex was feeling very stressed. I mean, you got the impression, at least I did, that a lot of it just had to do with his concern about the Rossi, which he obviously loves. But, you know, all of his scenes, he seemed to not be, like, in the greatest headspace. And then you see at the end, he's feeling guilt. He's feeling like he let people down because the 25 people on the assault team that were killed in the pod that he wasn't able to save, he's feeling like he should have been able to save everybody. And so now he's kind of driving, pushing himself to be better so that he can. But as I believe you guys said her name was Drummer, as she had said to him, you know, she said, "I'm impressed that you were able to get out of there. You weren't, like, blown to pieces." He already did a pretty tremendous job in saving them. So that was a pretty sad moment. And then, of course, we have a lot of stuff going on with Holden and Naomi. With their relationship, they have a bit of a crisis conflict situation because Naomi, like I said, seems to be more in tune with my perspective on most things so far I've seen throughout this series, but she really kind of also seemed to be specifically in tune with this particular incident regarding Miller. I mean, she seemed to get it when not everybody else necessarily did. You know, Amos said, I get it, he killed your girlfriend. That was his idea. He was under the impression. All the Belters, like the kid, Diogo, and everybody are hailing him as a hero because they see him as like making a strike for people from the Belt. Fred wasn't particularly happy about the situation at first, so it seems at the end that he kind of gets it. And then obviously you have Holden, who's just outraged and thinks that he was just being an executioner or whatever. But Naomi it seemed like she kind of got it, and she's saying, you know, he cared about all of us. And so I'm on Naomi's side there. But anyway, the point being, they had that bit of a conflict, which seemed to be sort of somewhat of a wrench there. But, I mean, as I said, she loves Holden. That was a dispute. I never saw it as that she was, I don't know, breaking up with him or seeing it as a huge rift. But apparently he was concerned about that. But we see at the end that they come together just fine. But then Holden's other major issue throughout this episode, besides being unable to really come to terms with what Miller did and seemingly just continuing to come back to it no matter who he's talking to, he can't get it out of his head, he's so angry. Other than that is his interactions, his interrogations of the scientist, and Amos is the one who's really able to come through there and figure out a way to communicate with him and get information. But even when Amos is kind of leading leading Holden through it, Holden is basically just unable to keep the disgust and contempt out of his voice and out of his questions. So he can't even put aside his strong perspectives, his idealistic beliefs, even for a moment, it seems, in order to kind of, I don't know, to kind of have some sort of practical solution or to see things, see what you need to do. It definitely makes it seem like there's a bit of a weakness in his idealism there. But I'm curious as to why he seems to have fallen back on this, because it does seem that from the end of season 1 up until now, with his interactions with Miller, he maybe was kind of shying somewhat away from the idealism. Not much, he's still Holden, you know what I mean, but he had a bit of more practicality to him. You know, he left the spy behind on Eros. And maybe it's just that he's feeling so upset and disgusted about what Miller chose to do by killing Dresden that he's like really trying to distance himself from that altogether. So he's pulling back totally towards his kind of idealistic, righteous, as Amos says, self. I don't know. Yeah, but he seemed to be unable to kind of do what needed to be done in order to get information. And that's where Amos comes in. And Amos is able to kind of see what this guy is like. But for me, everything that happened with Amos in this episode, the most interesting stuff had to do with maybe his perceptions of himself and how he's able to think of himself in relation to this character who we know has all ability to empathize kind of burned out of his brain. He's been turned into basically a sociopath. And I feel like in that one moment when Amos is saying, is that reversible? He's thinking about himself. He's thinking, could I be changed? Because as I had said before, you know, he feels like there's something not right about him. He recognizes this. And that's why he follows Naomi or Holden, and that he sees that he views them as kind of like better people with more moral judgment. And even though he sees the validity and the usefulness of his own kind of way of looking at things, he feels as though there's something wrong about it. So that, to me, that moment was kind of sad, as though he's almost asking, can this be reversed for the sake of himself, and that he has this desire to, maybe I don't want to be like this. I maybe would choose to not be like this. And to me, that was kind of a sad moment. But then you see, if he wasn't like this, of course, then he wouldn't have been able to recognize the idea that the scientist, his vision of Eros is similar to like a pedophile's obsession. And so he wouldn't have been able to kind of break through his method of communication and get this information out of him if he didn't have this way of looking at things. But I think it's important also to sort of differentiate it. To me, there's a clear difference. Even though there's some certain similarities, there's a clear difference between Amos and this guy who's clearly a sociopath. There's an obvious distinction, at least even in the sense that Amos feels that something isn't quite right, and he has a wish that, even if it's not like always there, some sort of part of him seems to wish that he could be different than that. You know, he wants to be more like Naomi, for instance, whereas this guy obviously is not like that at all. So, I mean, Amos, he thinks about himself and the way he reacts to things in the world. He questions it, and that's a big difference in my opinion. And also, I mean, it's obvious that even though he maybe isn't quite the same as Naomi, Holden, in terms of Alex, in terms of empathetic ability, he also does care about them. It's clear, especially Naomi. It's not that he doesn't care about anyone in the way that guy does. So I think it's important to differentiate between them. There may be certain similarities. It's kind of like there's a spectrum, and he's maybe more in, maybe somewhat closer to that guy than to the others in certain aspects, but he's definitely not him. He's not like him. At least that's my opinion. And I think that was a lot of really important information about Amos that we were able to gather in just a short amount of time with this episode. So that was really significant to me. And then, as I said, there's Miller is the other major character development for me in this episode. Miller, you know, ever since the beginning, I've been kind of talking about this idea that he's tried to not really identify with anyone, with Belters or with Earthers, or he's just a man on his own, so to speak, or maybe sometimes feeling that he's caught in the middle, or he doesn't want to be associated with the belt in the, you know, he'd wear the hat that Semi gave him, which simultaneously is an association with Semi, who was his childhood friend as a Belter, so that's Belter life, but also is a like, not really a Belter thing to wear a hat. It's an Earther thing, and you know, it was kind of hiding his self as a Belter in some ways too. So there was always this weird kind of dichotomy there where he was not one or the other, and then to have him explicitly say in this episode when he's there just looking at himself in the mirror and talking to Diogo, to say that, you know, you're on one side or the other, and you don't really have a choice. You know, you don't really, things happen to you. That it seemed as though he was almost kind of embracing this idea that this is just who I am, and there's nothing that I can do or not do that can take that away. That's not going to change. It wasn't a choice that I made. It's just who I am, and it's how other people see me. And might as well, you know, embrace who I am seemed to kind of be maybe the direction that he was going in. It's just that moment where he's saying, all these Earthers, you know, to get what is there on Eros, they would basically kill all of us Belters. It seemed that he was really taking that final step into fully associating himself as a Belter. Like, this is who I am, regardless of the choices I've made in the past, regardless of if I want to be identified as a Belter or not, I am a Belter. And I have to, you know, accept what it means, and he's just gonna, like, go fully all in on that. And it seems like now at this point, you know, he has reached that level where maybe he has lost everything there is to lose, because now he's also lost this kind of like little home that he was maybe sort of going to be making on the Rossi with Holden and the crew after the choice that he made on Eros to kill, or I mean, not on Eros, sorry, but the choice that he made to kill Dresden because of what happened on Eros. So yeah, and it was really interesting and to see, and then he symbolically does that with the cutting of his hair, in that style. So that was big. That was big for Miller, and he sees Julie when he's doing it, when he's making that choice, which I guess is kind of reinforcing the idea that, yeah, this is right. Whether it's really Julie there, or if it's just in his mind or not, you know, I don't think that necessarily matters so much. It's just that she also kind of represents this Belter side and this identity, and also something positive for him. So it seems that, yes, you're on the right track. Her being there seems to maybe sort of symbolize that in some way for him. And then we have him going to see the Mormons, which was kind of confusing to me to figure out at first what exactly he was trying to do. I think they tried to set it up in a way where you'd think, so is he gonna like go off and join the Mormons and try to find some happy life in this Earth substitute ship, generation ship? But that's not Miller, and as I was saying, even when they were in it, you know, that's not gonna happen. That's not but I didn't know what was going on, and then we see the end scene with Fred. He comes in and he says, yeah, I know where I want to go. I want to go to Eros. I've got to go back to Eros. Because he feels they have to destroy it because of what he said about, you know, any of those Earthers. They would do whatever they had to do. They'd kill all of us if they had to in order to get what was on there. So basically he's saying, we have to destroy all of it that exists, everything that's left. And Fred agrees. And that's when you also have the moment where Fred seems to recognize the validity maybe of what Miller did in killing Dresden and why he did it. And so I guess somehow they're going to use the Mormons' ship to destroy Eros. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes along, and that it seems that Miller was just kind of like fishing for information about the ship in that whole scene with the Mormons. So that's funny. That's kind of funny, but also makes a lot more sense. You know, he's bringing out his detective side of him in order to find out what he needs to know. So I liked that. And yeah, I mean, I really thought it was a good episode overall. There's some things I didn't really touch upon much, but we got some cool stuff with Avasarala and her continuing to politic behind the scenes, and the length she was willing to go with communicating with Fred in order to try and get information, which seems to have paid off, because he did send her some information, so we'll see how that develops. And also, of course, all the stuff with the Martian team. Like I said, I expect that eventually they're going to cross paths with everybody else, because that's what happened in season 1 with all of our disparate characters coming together. So I'll be curious to see how that plays out too, especially since the kind of lead of their group there, and really most of them seem to be very much geared up for the idea of war, so we'll see. But yeah, so guys, if there's anything that you think that I missed or that I didn't comment on that you would really like to talk about, that you think is important, please do leave it down in the comment section below. Or if you have any questions for me, if you agree or disagree with anything that I said, I'd love to hear your opinions. Alright, so I've talked quite a bit, so I think that I'll wrap it up. I'll leave it at there, and just say again, thank you so much for joining me today. Hopefully I will see you next time. Bye.